Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, we've talked many times, of course, about the state of education in Scotland. One of the world's best education systems has been reduced to a par that is level with some third world countries. All of this, of course, achieved under nearly 17 years of SNP rule. They would like to blame other people, but they are the ones responsible for the curriculum. What is currently, of course, being called the curriculum for excrement. Well, whilst it's okay for us to sit and discuss it, it needs to be taken at a higher level. And now someone else has started to take an interest in how bad the children of Scotland are being served by the SNP and their appalling education policy. That person is the UK Secretary of State for Education, Gillian Keegan. She is saying that it is so bad that there must be some kind of intervention from Westminster to stop it falling and collapsing completely. We'll take a look at this, see what she's proposing, and to see what on earth can be done to safeguard the future of all children in Scotland, whose futures are being completely destroyed deliberately by the SNP. Here goes. So, Scottish education system is on the brink of collapse, says UK Education Secretary Gillian Keegan. What happened? The Nats have spent years putting progressive ideology ahead of evidence-based policy decisions and resulting in the worst ever results for both science and maths. Now, we're going to go and look into this and see what's going on, see what Gillian is saying. But I would ask if you could possibly help the channel by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell, and also hitting a like on the video. It absolutely massively helps. And you can join us in the search for truth and in the constant fight against the damaging corruption and lies and ineptitude of the SNP government of Scotland. Anyway, we'll get into this. The UK Education Secretary, this is Gillian Keegan, has launched a blistering attack on 16, in fact nearly 17 years now, of SNP failure, as she accused her Holyrood counterparts of letting Scottish children down. And indeed now it's an entire generation have gone through their entire school career and are permanently damaged. They're trying to go out into the real world, ill-equipped, ill-suited and ill-educated for the changing times in which they find themselves. But this, make no mistake about it, is not accidental. It is deliberate policy. They have been told time and time again, and yet they continue on their course because it is ideological. It is not anything to do with the education of children. It is the brainwashing, the gaslighting and the changing of society to try and build it into a world that they want, not one that the people of Scotland want. A rare intervention from Gillian Keegan comes after the latest International School League table showed the performance of Scots pupils has plummeted in maths, science and reading. Pupils in England, by contrast, moved up in the global rankings. Now that is very surprising when you consider how the SNP continually boast how they spend more per capita on children in Scotland on their education than is done in England. It goes to therefore show it isn't a case of money, it's a case of ideological and political manoeuvring. Writing in Scotland on Sunday, Miss Keegan said Scotland was once the envy of the world for education and asked what happened. Reflecting on the PISA study, she said it had told a tale of two records, an English system that continues to rise up the international rankings versus a failing Scottish system at the brink of collapse. And we talked about the PISA results earlier in the week and how it was just so appallingly bad. And of course it was, now PISA is separate from the other rankings that are given. There is the world rankings thing that gets done. And Cranky pulled Scotland out of that some 10 years ago because she knew it was so appallingly bad. And they were even then so embarrassed about it, about what they'd done to Scottish education. They said if we don't put it into the league tables, nobody will ever know. But of course people do know. They see what's going on in Scotland's schools. The downward trend is also reflected in Labour-run Wales. It's funny, isn't it? Two sets of socialist governments are failing children. They also performed worse still. It is deeply worrying. A generation of children will be disadvantaged for life, when they go to look to university, an apprenticeship, or even look to just find a job, often competing with others from around the world
others, of course, who have had better educations. And we showed in one of the results, we did this earlier in the week, where in one of the, I can't remember which one it was, but in one of the results, Malawi outperformed Scotland. A third world country outperforming what is supposedly a Western first world nation. It is hardly credible until you realise who's running the education system. She went on, this situation hasn't happened by chance. I mentioned this. This is all deliberate policy. So different parts of the UK have taken fundamentally different paths to education. Both in Scotland under the SNP and in Wales under Labour. They've spent years putting progressive ideology, pushing the pronouns, let's sexualise the children, things like that, ahead of evidence-based policy decisions, and it has led to this sustained fall in educational outcomes. Yeah, they don't know sod all about maths and physics, they can barely read and write, and yet, hey, they know 57 different pronouns and know how to touch themselves, thanks to different surveys by the SNP, asking 5-year-olds what they think about when they do touch themselves. I keep saying it because it's true and it needs to be continually pointed out that survey was real. They have refused to follow our lead, she said, on academisation. They have watered down the rigour of their exams and they have refused to open themselves up for scrutiny, pulling out of 2 international education rankings, which I mentioned earlier. Scottish children have been let down by the SNP and continue to be let down. And if you are an SNP voter in Scotland and you've got children or grandchildren are at school and you're voting for the SNP, this is what you're voting for. Look to actually what you're voting for. You're looking and voting to destroy your children and your grandchildren's futures. You're deliberately handicapping your children in terms of education. Why would you do that unless you are stupid or you are evil or you literally don't care about your children and your grandchildren? They are the 3 options. I can't think of anything else. Are you stupid, evil, or just don't care about your kids? Under the PISA rankings released by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, the scores show results of nearly 700,000 students from 81 countries. Ms Keegan, the MP for Chichester in West Sussex, also criticised the First Minister and urged the Nats to look to other parts of the UK to turn around Scotland's failing classrooms. Well, I would suggest rather than looking to England, they looked to Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland still has the grammar school system. Northern Ireland continually has very high results. I wonder why. Anyway, I'm going to round off there. I'll come up because it's more or less done. We all know Scotland's education system's falling apart. We know why. The SNP, gender politics, pushing the pronouns, all to do with ideology, all to do with wokeness, nothing to do with actually educating children to the skills and knowledge they need for the world, because they don't want an educated population. Same as in Wales. They're achieving what they want. Dim children. So that they grow up to be dim adults. And no one can ever question them. Coming up. Ultimately, it is the children who will pay. It's the children who are already paying. It's those who've already left school. The 16, 17, 18-year-olds today who've undergone all this massive failure. They're going out into the world, one hand tied behind the back because they just did not get the education they needed or deserved. And all because the SNP do not want to educate children. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do get angry. Do go and address the issue. And if you can possibly teach your kids at home, do so. Because Scottish schools are just failing them. And if you are, as I say, an SNP voter with children, ask yourself if the push for independence is worth throwing your children's lives away for. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.